It's kind of hard to believe now that it took so long for a Batman movie to be made.
Hi, I'm Robert Wall. Exactly 50 years ago, a teenage cartoonist named Bob Kane first created the character Batman.
Oh sure, there were Batman movies before, but Batman 1989 would be different. Big budget, big actors, big promotion, big release, no winking at the audience or corny jokes. This would be the Batman fans had been hoping to see for a long time. You would have thought that after the success of Christopher Reeve's Superman films that Batman would have come soon after. I mean, it just seemed like a given. Apparently, a Batman film was planned throughout much of the 80s, but somehow it just never happened. It wasn't until that summer of '89 Batman would arrive. And boy, was it an event. That whole summer was dominated by Batman. Not even just the summer, but the announcement of Michael Keaton's casting, the day that first trailer, watching it over and over again, opening weekend, when the movie hit VHS at the low price of $20, you could actually own it. Batman pretty much ruled an entire year. What's funny about that summer of '89 was, besides Batman, that summer had an endless stream of highly anticipated and popular movies hitting screens. I mean, actually even starting earlier in the year. And crazily enough, some of them were actually good. I mean, I know that's kind of an alien idea today, Hollywood is really good at promoting the hell out of a big blockbuster. It drums up excitement for it. Everyone goes to see it opening weekend, and then after the dust settles, it leaves audiences shrugging their shoulders and they forget about it the next day and the movie disappears. I mean, sure, that summer had some stinkers, but there's a reason why movie fans argue that 1989 was the best summer for movies ever. I mean, that summer, I was hitting the theater practically every weekend. This summer, I think maybe there's 2 or 3 flicks I'm interested in seeing. Looking back at what came out in that first half of 1989, it looks like most of the movies are on the list for remaking, rebooting, resequelizing, reimagining, re-ripping off, or, whatever term Hollywood wants to use. Movies that they would love to get their hands on if they haven't done it already. That could be an idea for Hollywood. Use that summer of '89 schedule as a template and just redo all these movies. Just add some CGI to them and, boom, instant 2016 blockbusters. Batman was the biggie, though. Everyone was psyched for it. When me and my friends went out to see it opening weekend, we all had our Batman t-shirts on, stood in line. Back then, there were actual geeks and nerds. And if you were one, you didn't have to announce it like it's some kind of badge of honor like today. Everyone wants to be a geek now. Oh, I'm such a nerd, I do such geeky stuff. No, that didn't exist back then. You were a nerd, you were an oddball, you got strange looks, and you were an outsider. Today, frickin' supermodels are bragging they're geeks. It's so hip. I bet you $1 these bandwagoner geeks were never getting pummeled in the school bathroom and having their comic books torn to pieces by bullies. Yeah, I'm sure they're such squares. I remember me and my friends having endless conversations about Batman. The casting of Keaton was the biggest one.
So at this moment, I think it's important that I see all of your breasts.
I remember so many people talking about how Adam West should be in it, too.
Please, it's Batman!
It didn't matter that it was more than 20 years since the '60s show. He was the one and only Batman to people, and they really believed he should return for this movie. I mean, how could they possibly cast Michael Keaton in this? I thought they said this was going to be a serious dark take on the character. Man, did he catch so much flack. I recall us keeping hope alive that he'd do a good job solely based on Clean and Sober. I told you, we were going to the movies constantly back then. We saw he was really good in a dramatic role and he could do more than his comedies, which most people only knew him through. Sometimes I wondered if he was somewhat relieved that he had done Clean and Sober before Batman, just so when the controversy erupted, there was one role on his resume that wasn't a light comedy.
What I was particularly impressed with was the work of Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton, an excellent job in this role.
Michael Keaton and everybody else in the movie, too.
Keaton was such a radical casting choice at the time, and still, decades later, it's still talked about as such a risky move. It could be the most dicey decision of casting a superhero ever. The other odd thing was Tim Burton being chosen to direct this. Of course, we already knew who he was from Pee-wee's Big Adventure and Beetlejuice, loving both those movies and being excited he was going to do this. At the time, he seemed like another odd choice. Young guy, unusual movies to his credit, he was going to be dealing with a huge budget. I mean, what's going to happen with this? By the time first seeing it opening weekend, I was practically sold on it already. Months of build-up, Batman logos everywhere, constant reports on the news about this new upcoming Batman movie. Obviously, there's been superhero movies since Batman, but none of them have come close to the anticipation and excitement of that movie for me. Not one. They could probably do a Marvel, DC, epic fight movie. I mean, it would still pale in comparison to the hype for that '89 Batman movie.
Tonight, though, we're going to begin with one of the summer's most anticipated blockbusters, in spite of the fact that it is not a sequel.
Yeah, at one time, a Batman movie was something brand new. At the time, fans were just psyched to get a big-budget superhero movie. That alone was cause for a celebration.
Batman opens in theaters nationwide on Friday, and by the looks of things, if you start lining up now, you might get in to see it the first couple of days.
Please cooperate and do your part in keeping this theater quiet, so everyone, including you, can enjoy.
Like, I remember first seeing that opening scene with the robbers on the roof and already loving it. You know how, like, we all thought it was the Wayne family at first, and his parents were going to get killed in that first scene, then realizing, oh no, it's not them. The Bat? Aw, man, give me a break, will you? It was pure excitement seeing that film unfold for the first time. I'll admit, it's kind of hard for me to be harshly critical of Batman since I have such a nostalgic affection for it. And I'm carrying a lot of the baggage and history from that initial excitement from seeing it that summer. Through the years, for me, the seams really started to show, and it hasn't been a movie that I go back and rewatch a lot. I watched it so many times that first year, I sort of got my fill of it, so I hadn't really watched it all the way through in a long time. While I still find it entertaining, this is not a perfect movie. The thing that really stands out is how unique Batman looks. The production design was impressive back then, and it still is. This was before the whole gothic, otherworldly, Burton-esque images started to become more familiar in movies, and we'd start to see it a lot more often. There's a lot of shots that clearly look like it was filmed in the backlot in England. I mean, there's really no getting away from that. I always found it funny how that Monarch Theater is in, like, every street scene. Gotham City doesn't seem as huge a place as, like, they're trying to make it out to be. Everything takes place in that one street in Town Square. But the design of the street does look cool. Like all the sets, with the giant vents, the girders. I always liked Jack Palance's office. All the stuff production designer Anton Furst created makes Gotham City into this bizarre fantasy city, which fits with the dark and fairy tale tone that Burton did with the movie. I mean, nothing really looks real. It's all exaggerated. There's no reality to most of it, which is a much different approach than how we see superhero movies try to pull it off today. Today they want to try to put these characters into our world, not their own. As a result, I'm much more forgiving to some of the over-the-top and unbelievable things that happen in the movie. In comparison to, say, like Batman Begins, they establish this realism to Gotham and all that. Well, then I need some explanations, like how Bruce Wayne gets this Batmobile. Here, in this kooky setting, a sleek Batmobile showing up, hey, why not? Who's to say that can't happen? There aren't really any rules for what can or can't happen. It'd be like complaining that there's a talking tree in The Wizard of Oz. The suspension of disbelief can be stretched like a rubber band in this. I mean, a Batplane? Sure, why not? I don't question any of it for a second, like how the Joker has a green helicopter with a snazzy Joker logo on it. If Heath Ledger showed up flying that around, I bet fans would have been groaning. I think they should have made that logo look more like Nicholson and less like the comic book character, by the way. Kim Basinger doesn't get talked about much, and for good reason. Her Vicky Vale is the love interest and the damsel. She does a lot of screaming. I don't associate her very strongly with Batman. When I think of her movies, her role in Batman gets overshadowed by Keaton and Nicholson. So I kind of have to remind myself, oh yeah, she was in Batman. Nadine and Blind Date come quicker to mind when I think of Kim Basinger movies. We all know Basinger was a last-minute replacement in the role because Sean Young got injured and had to pull out of the movie.
The Batman deal, right? The Batman
Well, I was before I fractured my arm.
Apparently she fell off a horse while preparing for her role as Vicky Vale. I always wondered what kind of scene was she training for in Batman that involved her on a horse. I mean, maybe her and Bruce taking a romantic ride together? I guess whatever the horse scene was, they dropped it when Basinger came aboard. I think Young would have been more of a presence as Vicky. She's pegged as a bit unhinged nowadays, but around this time, she was doing some pretty good roles.
This camera works through acupressure points on the hands, and you put them down on templates, and it reads that, and then it produces an aura.
Well, she was always a little bit strange. But she certainly wasn't just a pretty face, and she could act. I bet Young's Vicky would have been a stronger character than Basinger's. I can't imagine she would have screamed so much. I mean, I'm not sure how she and Keaton would have clicked, though. I could imagine Young's Vicky actually making her way into the Batcave herself, unlike Basinger, who has to be escorted in by Alfred. I mean, that's another scene I never liked. He brings her into the Batcave. A journalist, no less. I mean, what made Alfred think this chick was so special compared to all the other girls Bruce must have gotten it on with? At least they kind of made fun of that part in the sequel.
Security? Who let Vicky Vale into the Batcave? I'm sitting there working and I turn around, there she is. Oh, hi Vic, come on in.
Actually, I was never sure if Vicky figured out that Bruce was Batman from that little tray with the bullet thing that he does. If that helped her put two and two together and she figured it out. I mean, maybe she did. I don't know. However it happens, she shows up in the Batcave, thanks to Alfred. I mean, Alfred should have stopped her at the door. He said, I don't know what you're talking about, Miss Vale. I mean, Alfred must be the worst wingman ever.
I'll talk to you guys when you get back.
Back, Miss Vale? We're going to be here for quite a while.
But the scene is real cornball.
I just gotta know, are we gonna try to love each other?
Oh, boy. I guess Basinger is all right. I mean, she changes up her hair a few times and wears different outfits. And her being a blonde bombshell kind of works with why Joker takes an instant liking to her. Like she kind of resembles his gangster moll, Jerry Hall. But she's not much of a presence in this. Especially considering Bats and Joker are fighting over her. Yeah, I think Sean Young would have added much more to this part. I mean, sadly, we'll never know. The whole Keaton controversy blew over pretty fast. Everyone was surprised by the announcement. But somehow, it works. He's fine in this. I never had any complaints about him. In fact, I don't recall any loud vocal reactions of Keaton sucks ever from this movie. He's much better as Bruce Wayne than Batman. That old bulky bat costume covers him up pretty completely. He really doesn't get to do very much wearing it other than fighting and running around and staring coldly. He does change up his Batman voice from his Bruce Wayne voice, which I believe was the first time that was done. Adam West certainly didn't do that. And it works pretty well. It doesn't sound like such a dramatic, put-on voice as like when Christian Bale was doing it. I think that's a mandatory thing now. When a guy plays Batman, you have to change your voice. Keaton makes his Bruce Wayne kind of awkward and clumsy. His introduction with Alfred picking up after him, I never knew for sure if Bruce is meant to be that much of a klutzy, out-of-touch guy, or if he's just so smitten with Vicky he's distracted. Same with his awkward conversation with Vicky and Knox. He acts really out of it, as if they're trying to get it across that he's more comfortable in the Batsuit and is badly trying to play act the part of the Playboy millionaire. This scene always kind of annoyed me too. The two reporters not recognizing Bruce Wayne. I didn't let that go with Batman v Superman, so I can't let it go here.
Who's that? You must be new. That is Bruce Wayne.
I mean, the guy has a place guard at the big city dinner. They don't know what he looks like? Come on.
There's nothing in these files. No photos, no histories, no nothing. Who is this guy?
In a lot of scenes, Keaton's Bruce Wayne looks totally zoned out. And then he does this goofy smile in the bat suit. Very strange. I sometimes wondered how he would have done as the Joker. Based on Beetlejuice, I could see him playing a maniacal, over-the-top villain. He played a few bad guys after Batman came out, and he was always pretty decent. He probably could have pulled off the Joker, too. It's not so much a straight, coherent story being told as it becomes a series of set pieces. I mean, there are a lot of entertaining set pieces, but things start to get dropped and muddled. It becomes confusing what the motivations are. Like, we meet Knox, and he's getting crap for investigating this bat story. Everyone is mocking him and dismissing him as a kook. Robert Wuhl looks like he'll be sort of the everyman character reporting on this craziness. But when Vicky arrives, he kind of disappears into the background. I never liked that he didn't get some sort of redemption when it's finally proven that Batman is real, and what great, relentless reporting he had done. His Batman story is never mentioned again. Like, I always thought it was weird since that's how the movie starts. I'm not saying he should get revered at the end like, Woodward and Bernstein, but how about giving him a little victory? I mean, no, nothing like that. The Joker's motives are where things really get crazy. Like, I never really understood the end game for him. So we meet Nicholson and Jack Palance. Palance says that line, "Don't forget your lucky deck." So Nicholson as Jack Napier gets set up by Grissom at the chemical plant. I mean, it looks like something out of an old Fleischer Superman cartoon with all the tanks, the smoke, big electrical panels, the catwalks, the big turning dials. I always like the little inserts that get tossed in of like Batman disabling a cable from his belt. I guess that's to explain how he can swoop down so smoothly, in case that was bothering you.
6 new deaths, with no clues as to the Joker's deadly weapon. The search goes on through Gotham's shopping nightmare.